Hello, and welcome to Blank Plate, a podcast for Swifties with an appetite.
I'm Sara, and I used to be a little kid with glasses and a twin-size bed.
I'm Laura, and I'm a mess, but I'm the mess that you wanted.
And we've got a blank plate, baby, and we'll write your name.
Emergency pod!
Do, 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 do.
Emergency pod as requested!
Oh my gosh. Emergency pod for everything that's been going on this week.
What a week.
The announcement of a new album. What a time to be alive.
We're being fed. We're being fed.
We are being fed.
The trial was the very worst, and now we're being fed.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're doing an emergency pod about the announcement of the Life of a Showgirl and the entire rollout that's happened in the last few days, which is absolute insanity. So, but before we get into that, what's been on our plates?
Honestly, like nothing crazy for me. Although this week has been busy for me work-wise. Like I was in the office Monday and Tuesday in the midst of like all this Taylor craziness. And then being back at home the last 2 days, working from home, it's like I've had more computer work to do from being in the office for 2 days. And like, whereas like last week I had so much free time. And then this week it's like work craziness, Taylor craziness, prepping an emergency pod.
Yeah.
Like watching the New Heights podcast. So, but it feels good to like have things to do, you know?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So similarly, I have had kind of a crazy week with just like getting back into the swing of school. As teachers, like we have to clock a certain amount of hours to like prep our classrooms, which we have to do anyway. But we have to like be in the classroom and like set up your desks again and, you know, reorganize. And the first like hour that you're there, I swear you just get into your classroom and you just like stare into space and you're like, where do I even begin? Like, where is everything? And like, you obviously left things not where they were because it was the end of the school year and you're just like throwing things away. It's just like absolute chaos. Yeah. And my brain has not been working at full capacity anyway. So like everything felt like a struggle. So anyway, I've been back at work. We have in-service starting basically when this episode comes out. So the school year is starting, which is crazy. So
welcome back.
I know. And the days before that, I was on a family trip to Cape Cod with my husband and my in-laws. And it was really fun because my niece and nephew were around and Cape Cod is amazing. Like, why aren't we going there more often? So,
it looks like a great trip. So, nice way to end out your lovely summer that you've been having.
Yeah, and apologies in advance, guys. I'm like really stuffy today. I don't know if you're watching on YouTube. It looks like my eyes are like red and puffy. That was because I've just been like a snot fest for the whole day. So I haven't been crying. It's just this is what allergies make me look like. So
yeah. My eyes keep watering too, but
mine are just like red and just like So anyway,
oh well. We've got some fun stuff to talk about.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's like where do we even begin? It just the last 2 days have just been like complete pandemonium. With the announcement of a new album and her appearance on New Heights, which is just insane. And we'll talk about all of it.
So this all began Monday.
Yeah.
Right?
Also, I wanted to say that, like, I think if I'm being honest, I felt more excited about the announcement of her buying back her masters than I am right now, even though, of course, I'm like extremely excited and pumped up. But I was like, because I remember when it happened, I was like, I feel like as excited as if she just announced a new album and she didn't. But I think it's because we've been waiting for and expecting a new album release. Like, it's like, of course, Taylor has another album coming out. This is to be expected. This is what we're used to.
Right.
And we love it.
Right.
But her buying back her masters was so completely unexpected. And this like moment of collective joy and accomplishment in a different way.
Yes.
But it is funny now having an album announcement. I'm like, I'm so pumped. There was something so special about that day and that weekend when she announced it.
And now we hear in her own words what that was like from the New Heights podcast. Like, we'll get into it. But yeah, it's been...
Yeah.
You know, we're always expecting an album drop, but we're not expecting something to actually like that. We just didn't see that on the radar as even a possibility. I'm sure she didn't really either. So anyway, this all started on Monday night. It was like around 9-ish.
Well, really started on Monday with the New Heights teaser for their new episode where we all were speculating, like,
right.
Is Taylor going to be on the podcast? So and Taylor Nation had a post that came out like 12 minutes later about See You Next Era. So we were already in a fervor like all day because I was at the office on Monday and I'm like texting
and there were people that were
like,
speculating, oh, it's not Taylor, it's going to be Stevie Nicks or like whatever. And we were all like, no, I know the outline of that forehead.
Right.
Or I know that shoulder slope, like that is her.
And the orange glitter background was suspicious.
Yeah. So we were already like sniffing out some clues. But when it was all like going down Monday, like I was at my house. I was not feeling super well. And I was like trying to like make my stomach a little bit feeling better. So I went downstairs to like make myself a little drink with like lemon and water, ice, whatever. And my phones automatically go on silent. I have like sleep mode set for 9 p.m. And in my mind, the next day was going to be my first day clocking into a normal school day hour. I was planning on waking up at like 6 and going into the office and like being there from like 6:30 and, you know, getting all these hours done. And then it's like, I check my phone right before I like tuck myself to sleep and I have like 17 text messages. And I'm like, what is happening? And as soon as I saw it was you and Rebecca in like our thread, which if you don't know Rebecca's been on our podcast, fellow Swiftie. And I was like, oh, something's going down. And then I read through all the text messages, immediately set an alarm for midnight because I thought, there's no way I'm going to stay awake. I was just about to fall asleep a second ago, but I could not stay awake. I was just in my Taylor zoomies. My mind was racing. I was like, I can't even fathom it. And then like, honestly, this whole week, we've needed this. Okay. It's been so bleak lately. The political world here in the United States is terrible. You know, there's just been like bad news galore. And this is like finally some joy. And there's been a lot of memes where it's like a fork in the road where it's like, kill myself. Taylor releases a new album. And I love that hyperbole because it's like, I needed the joy. Okay.
Yeah.
I needed the joy. We need the dopamine hit. I love that my brain is now activated on Taylor mode. Like I'm getting fresh Taylor content. Like, like I feel like my brain is being activated again in a way that's like only a Swiftie can understand. So.
Well, I even saw a post from like a psychiatrist today that was explaining the like chemical science of why being a Swiftie right now is good for you. And like what is happening and how that affects our brain and how it gives us like dopamine and oxytocin and just like makes us feel
all the good feelings. Yeah.
It's so true because even my friend Steph, who came over last night to watch the podcast together, she's a new Swiftie, like as of about a year ago.
So this is like her first album
release.
Oh, yes. So exciting.
Her first release as a diehard Swiftie. But she said, like, I love being a Swiftie because it's just like pure joy and like childhood, like excitement. Like it's like Christmas.
Yeah.
You know? And I was like, yeah, but it's like Christmas times like 1,000.
Luke's always talked about his jealousy that like there's an artist that I love so much that's still alive and still producing music because all of his artists are basically dead or they're just like retired and not making music. It's just like, it's not like it's so rare. You know?
Well, and she was also saying like, I don't know how I'm going to wait for October 3rd. I was like, no, it'll be here before you know it. And
we're going to be treated. Like,
the speculation and the anticipation is like half the fun. It's like
absolutely
when you look forward to a vacation and how that's actually basically as beneficial as the vacation itself.
Which
I think is also why like this has absolutely cured my depression 100%.
See?
Like last week, I was like, there's something wrong with me. I feel so off, like mentally, in a way that was unsettling to me. And now I'm like, I'm cured. I am absolutely cured. I have something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what to say. It is what it is. But yeah, it's been powering me through the week.
Yeah.
And has cured my depression. Full stop.
Yeah. I mean, that's what she does.
But so my experience with this was, Monday during the day, texting with people about like, is she going to go on New Heights? Like, it seems probable. Like, I think we're right this time,
Right.
But so I was working at the office and I was actually staying over at my parents' house for like 2 nights while I was in the office. So it was Monday night. I was at their house and I had just finished explaining to them the like theory of her going on New Heights and why we all thought that it was true.
Yeah.
And I think it was then that I got a text about the website countdown, which had the same glittery orange background as the New Heights thumbnail.
Right.
And so I was like, guys, look. I was like, no, seriously.
I'm not crazy.
I'm not crazy. Like, look at this. This matches. And and then I got a text about like the first clip we saw with Taylor on the podcast. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, I'm freaking out. And my dad kept saying that it was like I was a teenager in the house again. Just funny because like I wasn't like a Swiftie when I was a teen, but I think just the fact that I was like sleeping over at their house as their daughter and I'm like getting texts from friends and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm like freaking out.
Yeah.
So he was like, wow, Sarah's just like reverted back to a 16-year-old. But so I set an alarm for 12:12.
Yeah.
And I did go to sleep for like an hour before. It goes off at 12:12 on my watch. And I'm like, oh, I gotta get my phone. And then, of course, I had the thing where I'm refreshing her site. Nothing's happening.
Yeah.
So then I go to Instagram to see if like something got posted.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think somebody texted me the clip of her sharing it on New Heights. And so I'm like going back and forth between the website and this like I'm like, oh my God, I'm like deliriously texting multiple people. And this went on for about like 20 minutes and then I went back to sleep. And then the next day I realized like there was someone I hadn't responded to in the middle of the night. And I was like, I swore I responded to this, but I didn't. And then I was also like, wait, were Steph and I texting at like midnight? And I went back and checked and I was like, yeah, we were. I just like, it was all just
blackout.
Such a blur.
Yeah.
And in the morning.
That's like all of us ordering our pre-sale like vinyls. It's like, we don't even know what we bought. We bought something.
Did you pre-order the vinyl yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Pre-ordered the vinyl. And I still am unsure about what that even looks like. Like, is it the main picture? Is it the orange one? Like, that's what we can assume, right? Like, yeah. It's been a whirlwind and like, it's hard to recount even the last like couple days. So I feel like we should go through like the rollout schedule, like all the things that were leading up to it. So this all started on Monday when New Heights podcast posted just like a freeze frame, like a clip of their YouTube channel. And it said 92%ers were coming back early for a special episode with a very, all caps, special guest. New episode Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And the freeze frame, like I said, we all as Swifties were like, that's Taylor Swift. There's no question.
There were a lot of clues to this. And this is where I saw people online being like, I'm not a Swiftie, but I just learned so much. And this is all New Heights posted, but we're like, okay, Wednesday is August 13th. Okay.
Right.
7 p.m. is not their normal release time. So that's strange.
Yeah.
We've got the outline that looks like Taylor. We've got a glittery orange background, which makes no sense for New Heights.
No.
And Travis's little thumbnail of him, he's clearly like looking next to him and smiling at somebody sitting next to him.
Right.
And it's not Jason because they record separately. And Jason is looking straight ahead the way they normally would be.
Right.
Because he's by himself. So we're like, Travis has somebody next to him.
100%. So this was Monday. Monday, like what time? I don't even know. It's Monday morning.
Yeah.
And then literally 12 minutes later, Taylor Nation posts on Instagram thinking about when she said, "See you next era, ... And it's a carousel of 12 photos, all orange. And the last photo included a picture of Taylor and Sabrina. And we were all like, that's sus, but it's 12 minutes after this post exactly. It's just like the timing, everything was like lining up, right?
Yeah.
So then we get a countdown on Taylor's website, which expired August 12th at 12:12 a.m. And this is when we were like, lock in, it's happening.
Yeah, and it was so clearly for like a new era because we had the orange sparkly background. I think was there like it's like a new font.
Yeah, and it was
album.
Like a lock. The lock was sort of everybody's social media. Like it was Taylor Nation's profile picture, Taylor's profile picture for a short time. It was like the orange lock with the mint green.
Yeah. Also, the keyhole in the lock looks like the Eras Tour stage.
Brilliant. Literally brilliant. And then we get the New Heights snippet of Taylor and Travis together. And she goes, "Such a nice color on you." And then he said, "Yes, I know. It's the color of your eyes, sweetie. That's why we match so well." And Taylor's like beaming. Yeah. And then she said, "We're about to do a fucking podcast."
Which was it. I mean, just that clip alone, I watched so many times.
I know.
And it's almost like seeing an endangered animal in the wild.
It's, unheard of.
To watch her, and it's like so close on her too, like such a close up. And that's when I realized like we have never seen her interact with a boyfriend like this before. And we're
like
going to get a whole podcast of them, just being together as a couple and like talking.
Yeah, wild. So of course we're all freaking out.
Yeah, freaking out.
And then the pre-sale of vinyls and CDs are posted
at 12:12.
At 12:12. And it said at the time, it's like ships before 10/13/2025. This is not the official release date to be announced, which we now know is going to be October 3rd. And it's a Portofino orange glitter vinyl.
And at this point, the album art was still blurred out. We didn't know what the album art was. So no album art, no release date. We just know the title.
Yep.
And then it's coming before October 13th.
Yep.
And you can pre-order it. Also, like Portofino has to be a lyric mention. And I bet it's one of the places that she and Travis went to together in Europe.
Yeah. I mean, she's done that with the 1989, like, Sunset Boulevard, Aquamarine. Like it's got to be a lyric.
Yeah.
So we know the album title. We know obviously orange and mint green, but then we had like essentially like we knew that New Heights was in on the album release because they released a snippet that shows Taylor unveiling the new album cover, but it's all like blurred in the snippet. So we still didn't see it yet. Taylor said, "Also, I wanted to show you something." And Jason said, "Okay, what do we got? A briefcase?" Taylor said, "Yup." And then Jason goes, "Mint green with TS on it." And Taylor goes, "Yep, this is my brand new album, The Life of a Showgirl." And Jason just goes, "Ah!" And Travis yells, "TS12, baby!"
And Travis ends up with glitter on him, like the glitter confetti.
Yeah.
I have to say, like, this whole rollout to me is so wholesome. And
it's crazy.
It's absolutely insane that she did this. But like Jason, that clip especially, which I also watched a million times.
Of course.
Like Jason has such like girl dad energy in that clip where he's like kind of pretending to be surprised.
What do we got?
Like, oh, what do we have? And Travis, meanwhile, just looks like a kid on Christmas. Like, like he has that thing where, a gift that someone got someone and you're watching them give it to that person and you're like,
Yeah.
I know what it is. I know what it is. And I'm like so excited to see you see it and stuff. And like their excitement for her being shown here. And the fact that Travis calls it TS12 reminds me of when Taylor referred to Reputation as Rep TV.
One of us. One
yeah,
of
they
us.
are us. They're like, when's TS12? When's TS12?
Yeah.
And so they're freaking out like, yeah, we got TS12.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so good. I love it.
It's amazing.
I love it
it's
so
honestly
much.
mind-blowing. Yeah.
I'm never going to recover from this podcast episode.
No. So then that was like Monday night. And then we get to Tuesday. So we're all sleep deprived.
Right.
We've all like deliriously pre-ordered something that we had no idea what it actually looks like, but who cares? It's TS12. We're obviously like riding this high. We're all now starting to speculate what's up with the orange and mint green. Cause I think the mint green threw us a lot off. Like we were like, we kind of all speculated that orange was going to be the next album, but mint green was kind of new.
Yeah, I thought it would be orange and pink.
Yeah. So we'll get into that later. But yeah. And then this is like Tuesday when we have like that waiting time between Tuesday and Wednesday night.
Yeah. So at this point, we know the album title, but not the cover, not the release date. We're waiting for Wednesday night for the podcast. But on Tuesday, Travis did a cover story interview with GQ, and that dropped on Tuesday, which I feel like it feels a bit coordinated. And I don't mean this in a negative way. I just mean like with her appearance on New Heights, announcing her album, which is an incredible like exclusive that she's giving them, plus the interview itself. But then him having this cover story drop at the same time. And in that cover story, he of course like talks about Taylor. It's very much giving like we are a team. You
Absolutely.
know, like,
yeah.
And that's not something Taylor has done with a partner before. And is just like another example of how she has never had a relationship like this one before. And the fact that she's bringing him into her world so much, but he's doing the same back to her and bringing her into his world.
Yeah.
But there were a couple things from this interview with Travis that I wanted to mention.
Okay.
One of them is there's a quote of his where he says, I love being the happiest guy in the world all the fucking time. And when I read that, it was just like immediately a light bulb to me, like flashing lights, because what a 180 it is for Taylor from how much sad did you think I had in me? Or sadness became my whole sky. Or how long could we be a sad song?
Complete 180.
To now being with the man who says, I love being the happiest guy in the world all the fucking time.
Yeah. He's a golden retriever to her black cat.
Like, oh my God. To the core. Although honestly, I think Taylor's an orange cat.
I love an orange cat, so
she's like a little too wacky, I think, to be a black cat. I think she's got some of that orange cat energy. Yeah, which is why like they get along very well.
Right.
Which an orange cat is like the golden retriever of cats.
Absolutely. As an orange cat owner, I can clarify that they're nothing but sweeties and also like spazzes at the same time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I also noticed a lot of things about Travis in this interview that reminded me of Taylor. Like they have such similar outlooks on life and their personal fame. So one example is he used to have older players come up to him and say, like, man, you celebrate after every catch. And he was like, I'm in the NFL, dude. I love this shit. Like, this shit is exciting, right? And it reminded me of how Taylor never takes anything in her career for granted. And we see her talk about that in the interview on the podcast, and how she has said, I get tired, but I never get tired of it. Like, she loves performing and writing songs, and she every day, I think, feels lucky and fortunate to have that be her life. Mm-hmm. And Travis clearly has the same outlook when it comes to him being in the NFL, where he's like, dude, I'm in the NFL. Like, do you realize how crazy this is? Like,
right.
you know,
right.
So
right.
the fact that they both hold on to that, I think is amazing. And,
Jesus.
It must be your phone. Something's up.
I have no idea.
And Travis also talked about caring what people think about him. And while Taylor has definitely perfected her skills of like blocking out other people's opinions, we know she definitely cares about how she's perceived, and she does want to be liked and respected and stuff. And so, like he said, I do want people to look at me like I'm doing good in the world. I'm influencing and using my platform for the better, being a role model, being somebody that has done it the right way. Like, that is so similar to Taylor.
100%. Yep.
And he even talked about how they shared values in the interview. He said, quote, "We are two fun-loving people who have the morals to appreciate everyone for who they are. We share all those values."
Yep.
And he also said, quote, "I just want to be respected and loved by the people that I'm surrounded by in my work. I want to leave it better than where it was when I started. And I see her having those same values." Like, they really are locked in this way.
Uh-huh.
And of course, he also praised her a ton. He said she's an athlete for what she does to perform, like, on the Eras Tour, and that what she did on the Eras Tour was way more exhausting than what he does in his football career.
Which also was sort of brought up in the New Heights podcast a couple times too. So
yeah, like he kept saying, like, "Dude, you're an athlete," and she's like, "No, I'm really not." And he and Jason are both like, "No, you are."
She's like, "They're just words. You're just saying words.
You're just saying words." Yeah.
So then we're in this lull time. The GQ articles come out. Wednesday is coming. So, of course, all of us Swifties are speculating. We're having all these theories already, even though we're given like a crumb of knowledge, right? So Taylor shared a Spotify playlist titled "And Baby, That's Show Business for You" with a red heart that's like flaming fire.
Mm-hmm.
And we're thinking like, well, obviously that's going to be a song lyric.
Yeah.
And it included 22 songs from across her discography, all of which were produced by Max Martin and Shellback.
Mm-hmm.
So all of us are like, clock it.
Yeah.
Glitter Gel Pen Heaven.
Right.
Will we have 22 tracks total?
Mm-hmm. Which I thought was a possibility, but I did check today, and that playlist just has every song that she's ever done with Martin and Shellback. So I don't think that number 22 is like technically meaningful.
Right. And of course, us being Swifties, though, like the numerology of it all, we're like 22, clock it, 22. But now we know a little differently. We'll talk about that later.
Mm-hmm.
There were rumors that Sabrina was going to be a collaborator. Stevie Nicks was also announcing something on Wednesday. And Stevie Nicks' poem from the Tortured Poets Department vinyl was dated August 13th, which would be the day of the podcast.
Right. But that turned out to be nothing. And we just re-released her song "Don't Let Me Down Again" on Wednesday. But that was a weird coincidence.
Yeah, totally. So then all of us are talking about the name choice, right? Because like the Life of a Showgirl was nowhere near our vocabulary at the time as Swifties.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people very quickly pointed out that this name choice would cancel out The Life of Pablo by Kanye West when you search for it on Spotify, or, you know, if you're searching on Google, it's going to be suggested to you before Kanye West. Because Showgirl is before Pablo. And of course, The Life of Pablo is where the song Famous is in, which is the quote that sort of started the whole cancellation of Taylor Swift anyway. So we thought, okay, that's interesting. Obviously, we were now like looking into showgirls from her past. Like, when is she dressed up like a showgirl? That's a huge Easter egg from I Can Do It With a Broken Heart, and it's choreography, also the music video.
Right.
Because all of
us
had
those orange feathered fans that only showed up in the behind the scenes video, but never on the Eras Tour. So we're like, why are they orange?
Right.
Yeah.
And she literally plays a showgirl like in the choreography.
Yeah, there's also a lot of showgirl stuff in Bejeweled music video.
I mean,
Dita Von Teese.
Yeah, we did a whole rundown of that in our Patreon. So if you want to get more into that, because I do feel like that is low-key an Easter egg, you can check it out on Patreon. We'll have it in the show notes if you want to listen to it. Another Easter egg from the Bejeweled music video, besides Dita Von Teese, sort of like teaching her how to be a showgirl, is that the 12th floor is where she is a showgirl wearing orange with like clocks and stuff. So like we didn't clock that at the time, but like the 12th floor, hello.
But that's crazy actually.
Right?
Because we're pretty sure that the Tortured Poets department was not planned.
Yeah.
So like I think in the Midnights era, she was kind of but the other thing is like I think this album, The Life of a Showgirl, came about because of her life on tour, right? And she even said in the interview that this album is about what was going on behind the scenes in her life,
right,
while being on tour. So, like, would she have planned this showgirl aesthetic for TS12 back in the Midnights era before even being on tour and knowing what that would have felt like at that point in her life? But yeah, I don't know if these Easter eggs that we're talking about were actually planned, or are they more like retroactive? Because I don't know how she could have known that 2 albums after Midnights would be showgirl themed.
Well, maybe she knew maybe she knew the color theory. Maybe she knew orange was going to be 12. I don't know. But if it's not planned, it's a very great coincidence.
It's more like Tay Voodoo. Like Tay sorcery.
Yeah. So now we're all like looking back at her other music videos. We're like, what's going on? Even in the Look What You Made Me Do, people are like, oh, in the Look What You Made Me Do music video, there is a moment where she's wearing orange as kind of a showgirl. She kind of looks like she's dressed up like a girl in a cage. I don't know if that tracks, but we're all like looking into this. People are then theorizing, like, is this going to be a double album where the A side is the life of a showgirl and the B side is the death of a showgirl? We now know that's probably not happening, but at the time we're like trying to piece this all together. We're all trying to figure out, what about the Jack Antonoff and Aaron Dessner tracks? Like, you know. So we're trying to figure that out. And then a lot of us are like, what about a Las Vegas residency? It is the home of showgirls. It would be more settled for her as opposed to like doing a world tour again.
Right.
Obviously like not mentally prepared for that, like in any capacity.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Try to get tickets?
No. Can't even imagine.
Yeah. That would, I mean, a Vegas residency like at the Sphere or whatever.
Yeah.
Makes sense for Taylor at some point.
Oh, yeah. Like, that's going to happen. And I could see it for her down the road, too, because it's a little bit more settled. Like I said, like, I think for, like, there are rumors that Travis is going to retire at the end of this season. So, like, they could sort of, like, nestle in and be in one spot. I don't know. And, like, think about all the, like, girl trips that would ensue. Like, going to Las Vegas, wearing your sparkly dresses. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it would be a vibe. Yeah. And she could be there for a long time. So
the only reason I could see her not wanting to do something like a residency is because of all of the international people who it would be very hard for them to get there.
Then we're talking about the color theory. So orange is something we suspected because of the door that dropped at the end
and of a lot of new tour. Orange outfits. There's been a lot of orange hints going on. So that's not surprising. But the mint green is very unexpected. Yeah. And I have to be honest, I don't like it.
It's so like 2007 millennial coded, you know, like mint green.
Yeah, like I am not into the orange and mint green combo.
I know we were texting about this. Like, will she be selling orange cardigans?
Probably.
It's wild. Yeah, I don't know. It's very bold.
Yeah, it does not sit well with me as like a color person. I really thought this was going to be orange and like hot pink, which I love that combination. But I did see this theory online that maybe it has to do with copper, because copper goes from being like a more bright orange color to over time it turns like that mint green color. Like think of like the Statue of Liberty, right?
Right.
So I was like, okay, if that's the thought behind it, I can get down with it.
Right.
But that made me think of the times that she's mentioned rust in her songs.
Yeah.
So some examples are Rusting My Sparkling Summer in The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived. And we know this is like a sparkly album.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had The Shiniest Wheels. Now they're rusting. And This Is Me Trying.
Yeah.
And in Bad Blood, she says, did you have to ruin what was shiny? Now it's all rusted.
Yeah. And it also talks about like the aging of a showgirl, right? Like a showgirl who's bright and new and beautiful is like this bright copper. And then as the time passes, you age and you weather and you get a little bit more worn. So like the metaphor is a good metaphor.
Yeah. Which definitely ties back to Clara Bow.
Right.
And the message of that song. So I could definitely see that playing into it.
Remember, we always talk about how the last track of her albums are normally a clue about what's next. Clara Bow was technically the last track on the original Tortured Poets Department like album, not the anthology, but like the actual Tortured Poets Department. So that is literally an Easter egg for the next album. And she does sort of cycle through these like showgirls, Clara Bow, Stevie Nicks, herself, aging out of the celebrity process.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, like, she's brilliant. I mean, she's just so good. So good.
Yeah.
And another thing, too. We all thought the new emoji was going to be just like the orange heart. Very clearly, that is not it. It is going to be this blazing heart on fire that's been used multiple times. I mean, wasn't expecting that.
Which is red and yellow, which is Chiefs colors for Travis.
And we talked about how Portofino orange is something that she used for the color of the actual vinyls. A lot of people are speculating like that's where her and Travis went. Like, of course, people are talking about, oh, did they get engaged there? I mean, that's all speculation that we're not going to feed into, but maybe, who knows? And then we finally get to Wednesday. All right.
Okay.
Taylor's website posts a countdown at 7 p.m. before the podcast drop, and it's the Karma Door. And all of us are freaking out because out of all the clowning that we have done, we got one thing right. Okay.
Right.
Like
we always get one thing right.
Right. And that was it. And she did say on the podcast, she was very proud of us for figuring that out.
Yeah.
Because if you don't remember the last Eras tour, instead of going lower, like being lowered into the stage for her exit, she turns around and she walks through that orange door, signifying that that is her next era.
Which that door on the Eras Tour stage screen, it comes down.
Right.
And then lands at the bottom.
During the song Karma.
At the end. So we, this whole time, have been like, that door represents a new era. And so when it showed up on this countdown on her website, we're like, okay, we were right. And also, as the countdown was going on, the door was slowly lowering to the bottom, which is how it was on the Eras Tour.
Right.
But there were also these different colored locks that appeared at the bottom, 2 on each side. And it was like each hour, one showed up, and they were different colors. And those line up with the 4 special edition CD sets that she dropped that night.
Which, thankfully, she's releasing all 4 special edition variants at once, because that was another complaint that a lot of people had with Tortured Poets, because it was like almost all the time there was like some new variant special edition was coming out, but then it was just like, well, I'm overloaded, like I don't even know what to pick, you know. So it was confusing.
I'm hoping that that is true. And she did listen to us.
Right.
Because before it would have been like, she would have released the one variant and you could order the vinyl, and you can order the CD.
Right.
But then she would release these other ones at separate times. And people are like, okay, but like, I'm now paying like $10 shipping for each of these.
Right.
And they're all going to ship on like the same day, but now I'm
Right.
buying them all separately. And now I'm paying like $40 in shipping.
Right.
Well, it's like, can you just drop them all at once? So like we can just buy them, or like decide which one we want. If we're like, okay, I'm going to buy one, I'll pick this one.
Right.
So she did all 4 CDs at once. And I hope that means that she will release the 4 vinyls at once, which is really like 3 other ones, because I'm pretty sure the one is just the standard edition.
Yeah.
So I really hope that's true, because I know I'm going to be insane and buy all of them. So it's like, just let me buy the other 3 all at once. Like, just save me from myself. Okay?
Right.
You know?
Right. And then like finally at 7 p.m., the door is like all the way to the bottom of the website, and it opens and you see the cover art and the release date, which is October 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
And she dropped all the photos on social media. So we got it all.
Yeah. So, and the podcast also came out at 7, but I like how she did this, because, while she gave the podcast like the exclusive, she still technically announced all of this information herself on her site.
Right.
At like the same time.
Right.
So it wasn't like you had to watch the podcast at 7 p.m. to see the album cover and hear the release date. Like, no, at 7 p.m. on her site, we get all that information.
Yeah.
And now you can go watch the podcast.
I do want to take a second and talk about the leaks.
Okay.
So there is speculation that this was actually not supposed to be rolled out as quickly. That it was supposed to be announced when New Heights was returning, which I think was like end of August. So not that far away.
August 27th. Yeah, it's in like 2 weeks.
So she was going to be the first guest on the new season after their like break. And then she was going to announce it, and then it was going to be announced like later in October. But everything got bumped up. And that was because people had speculated that like things were leaking. And that's not what she wanted. So she basically pushed it up. I don't know if that's true, but I do know that leaks were shared. And as the Swifties, can we all unite and say, we're not feeding into the leaks? Okay. Yeah. This literally ruins the rollout of something that this artist has worked on for a very long time. It's their blood, sweat, and tears. Let them share it in their timing. It's so disrespectful.
Yeah.
Also, like, very intrusive. Ruins a lot of the surprise elements for us. And I will say, as someone who was shown a leak against my will, I was pissed. So when this Tuesday was happening and I was going on social media and just sort of like looking at all the speculations and theories, what people are talking about, people were posting the track list with inside cover art from the vinyl in pictures on TikTok comments.
That's not cool.
Which, like, that I'm seeing that against my will. I didn't ask to see that, because if I saw like Taylor leaks, I would have scrolled immediately past it.
Yeah.
So I was like, what is this? And thankfully I didn't see too much of it. I just saw like very blurred out stuff, and I was just like, whatever.
Yeah.
But I just have to say, if you're someone who's sharing leaks, shame on you. And you're not a real fan.
Yeah.
I said it.
Well, Wednesday night after the podcast, Josh was scrolling TikTok and he was like, did you hear this? Do you think it's real? And it was like a song. And I said, I don't want to hear it. I said, nope. I said, don't let me hear it.
Nope.
And then he was kind of laughing. I was like, I'm serious.
No, I'm serious. If anything,
like, don't let me hear it.
No. And I know that's going to happen between now and October 3rd. It's definitely going to be, there's going to be AI things that come out. There's going to be like fakes, but I don't want to hear any of it. Okay. Yeah. I'm scrolling past. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. No, thank you. I think I've done a good job of avoiding the leaks somehow.
Oh, I was so mad.
But it is so scary. Mad. Yeah.
Yeah. And Taylor's even talked about this and how upset it made her during her original 1989 album release, because that was leaked and that was devastating for her. So anyway, She's literally talked about this. If you're a real fan, you don't share leaks. You don't do that. So
don't give them airtime for sure.
Clock it. Right.
All right. So then we get to the interview on New Heights. And so, like I said, my friend Steph came over to watch with me, which I'm so glad that she did. And Josh watched with us too. But she and I were talking before and it's like, okay, is this just going to be like 10 minutes of Taylor popping in to like announce her album, like the little segment, or are we going to get more of like a full interview, like, oh my God, like 30 to 40 minutes?
Oh my God.
We got 2 hours, just a straight 2 hours of Taylor talking with Jason and Travis.
It truly felt like I was getting FaceTimed into the family call.
It did. Like I said, I feel like we're out to dinner with them. Like it felt like you go out to dinner with one of your best friends to meet their new girlfriend.
Right.
And then you're like, wait, so how'd you guys meet? Tell me about your first date. Like that's what it felt like.
Right. And she was so candid with everything. And I don't think we've ever gotten that lengthy of a sit-down interview with Taylor ever.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not that long, and especially not one where she was so comfortable and so willing to share.
Yeah, it was just you obviously could tell she felt safe there. She felt like she could just be herself, like lots of like stupid puns and just like
little tangents.
Yeah, and I love that. It just shows like how comfortable she was. And I mean, Travis and Taylor were so cute. They were very complimentary of each other. She called Travis a human exclamation point and a vibe booster. And like while that was happening, like Jason was like low-key kind of like tearing up about it, you know, like he just like loved that Travis was being loved, you know.
Right.
So many cute things.
It was like, especially in the beginning, because she goes right into talking about how like she owes this podcast her like, her relationship or whatever. But I was like obsessed with their physical love language during this. Like the hand holding, the arm around her, the hand on the leg, like the head kisses, like Travis just looking at her with like googly eyes and hanging on her every word.
The way he was just looking at her while she was speaking.
Looking at her, or like the way he was like holding her album. Like she was going to put it away and he was like, no. And then he was just like cradling it, like listening to her talk. Like he's just like this proud boyfriend.
Yeah.
Her saying to him, like, you're so handsome. And then like the one point when he didn't get the one song reference and she was telling him like, it's okay. You don't know that one. And he just goes, I love you. Like it's basically him saying like, I'm sorry, I don't know that one. He's just like, I love you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they just seem like a real couple that you would be friends with and go out to dinner with. And
they just seem so normal. Like normal.
Mm-hmm. They are normal. As normal as they can be.
Taylor literally trolls him the way that any girlfriend trolls her boyfriend. Like she was saying, he was screaming, I want to date you. Dude didn't get a meet and greet and made it everyone's problem. Like, you know, like, you know, and I love that they shared so much of the, like, you know,
the like behind the scenes.
We could speculate as much as we want. Right. But like to hear from her saying like, it's this romantic gesture she's low key been waiting for forever. And how like the spark of their romance is like kind of like an 80s John Hughes movie moment that she's wanted. And it's like, if this guy isn't crazy, and that's a big if.
Right.
Like, then this is everything I've wanted, which is so sweet and is so true.
Yeah, but she had all these people vouching for Travis, like Andy Reid, his coach, and Taylor's friends and family who like knew him or knew of him. Apparently Andy Reid and Taylor's dad are friends.
Yeah.
So, which kind of makes sense because Andy Reid used to coach the Eagles and Scott's like a huge Eagles fan.
Yeah. And Travis, like, didn't even reach out to management. Like, we got a lot of the details. Like, she was like, I expected him to... She was like, did he reach out? Whatever. And everyone's like, no. And apparently they had learned that Travis, like, thought that because she's at Arrowhead and that he knew the elevator operator, he'd be able to go down and meet her. And she's like, that might work in like 1974, but not now. Like,
not now. Yeah.
Right.
And she talked about how she didn't know anything about football when they met.
Yeah.
And like, she asked him on the first date, like, how it felt to look across the football field and like see his brother at the Super Bowl, because she didn't understand how with football, which I didn't know this either until, in the last year or two, that Travis and Jason were never on the field at the same time because they both play offense. So they're only on the field when the other team's defense is on the field.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but she's like jumped into like learning everything about football. She knows way more about football than I ever would.
And that's so her to like basically make it her life's mission to like fully understand everything about this, because like it's something she never cared about. Now she's like, I want to know everything.
Right.
So it's just, it's so clear that they have very natural chemistry. We got all this information about how they started dating. And like, there's so many other things that we got clued into, like just how much they are together, how close the Kelseys are to the Swifts. Like the amount of times that like Jason was talking about Taylor's dad.
Yeah.
Like
and
there's
like
all these
FaceTiming or something.
And like the fact that, Jason's girls like love Taylor's cats. Like there's so many things that you're like, wow, like they are a unit. Like they are basically family.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like she talks about baking with the girls, and like clearly the girls have been to her house and just like hung out.
Yeah. Very.
She was like even mimicking their little voices, being like, I found Benny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or Benjamin, Yeah.
And it's just
so sweet.
It's just very clear that she's in a very healthy, stable relationship. So we got all of that information, which of course sets our hearts pitter patter.
Right.
And they go into talking about reclaiming her masters, and she gave us so much information.
Yeah.
Just like off the cuff that we may have never, like, I'm still just so baffled that she was just so open and like clear, like clear-headed about, I'm just going to share everything. I have nothing to hide, like whatever.
Which I guess like shouldn't be that surprising because of how much she tells us through her music. But I guess I've always felt like she tells us through her music, but she keeps it all pretty close to the vest in real life. But in this interview, she just told us things. Like, I don't know if she just felt really comfortable because she was with Jason and Travis.
I think that, I don't know. I also think that she likes the element of surprise too. Like she talked about how, she's always like, how can I make this entertaining? How can I like keep people unexpected? And like, this is very clearly something that we didn't expect. And it worked. Like, we're all just like, we're going to be talking about this for a long time. Like this is just like not in her normal scheme of way she does this.
Yeah. Like she kind of did it for the bit. You know what I mean? Like, she was just like,
she committed to the bit. Okay.
She was like, wouldn't this be funny? Let me just go on your podcast for 2 hours and talk about all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I am so glad she talked about oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say that as of today, the morning after this release, that podcast got more streams than Donald Trump's podcast with, oh my God, what's his name?
Rogan?
Joe Rogan.
Good.
Yeah. So kudos for that. And I love that she's reclaiming Orange. So there's a lot of things going on with that as well.
Right. Yeah.
Just have to say.
But yeah, I'm really, really glad we got to hear her talk about reclaiming her masters the way that she did. So she told us that.
Oh my God. I got so choked up. Choked up during this section. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to cry.
I was crying. She tells us that she sent her mom and her brother, who work with her, to Shamrock on her behalf to ask to buy her catalog, which we didn't know that Taylor was the one who initiated this like that. I think we had all assumed that Shamrock came to her.
We had yeah.
But no, Taylor proactively went to Shamrock and said, please let me buy this from you. And apparently, like, the interview or the meeting went very well, according to her mom. She said, like, we don't have an answer, but they were wonderful and they listened to everything we said. And then it ended up being Andrea who called Taylor to tell her that they got it back, the music back, which I saw a couple comments online saying, like, how sweet it is that Andrea was the one who got to tell her, which I think is
that's amazing.
really nice. And so Taylor tells us that, you know, she immediately like hit the floor weeping when she got the news. And of course, like, Taylor at this point has gotten choked up telling the story. And Travis is kind of like rubbing her back. He like kisses the back of her head, giving her like that physical support in the moment. And we know that Jason and Travis are both wonderful at just like letting someone be emotional like that and just kind of sitting with them and letting them, you know, get there. And, you know, they're not uncomfortable at all by the fact that she's showing emotion. And I think the fact that she got emotional like that shows how much this means to her and how much this impacts her, like, even now. Because in general, I think Taylor is so in control of her emotions when she's in public. Like, the very few times that she broke down on the Eras tour and got weepy, if I were Taylor, I would be weeping every day on the Eras tour if I were her.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then she goes to tell Travis the news, and he was playing video games in his video game room. And she said she like tried to tell him in a normal way, but it did not come out normal. And she just like lost it telling him. And she apparently became dead weight, and he was just like holding her. She was sobbing, and he said that he was also crying. And I think, Travis even seemed to get a little choked up himself on the podcast, talking about it with her. And he might have been getting choked up because she was choked up. And I think he's a pretty like empathetic person. And it was probably just crying because like she's crying. But it was obvious that he really understood how important that was to her. And he was so happy to be able to be there with her in that moment. And she said that she was so happy that he was there. And then we had Jason asking like some no dumb questions about like the behind the scenes of that and why she had to do that. And, you know, I think that's great for a lot of people who don't fully understand it. And we get into it in our episode about Taylor getting her master's back. So if you've listened to that, then you guys know. But yeah, it was a great moment in the podcast. It was probably my favorite part overall, was her talking about that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. She did a really good job of explaining, like, you know, I think one of the metaphors she made is like, I want you to imagine like someone owns all of my music and like their grandchildren get that in their will.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, I want to buy it. It's mine, but I was never given that option.
Yeah. Oh, and she also said how she thought about not owning her music every day.
Right. This was something that was so serious to her.
Which also goes back to like what we talked about on that episode about her getting her master's back, about like how this whole re-recording process was probably very like cathartic. And she talked about how she enjoyed it, but it was also probably so painful.
Yeah.
And in her letters when she got them back, she talked about being able to release like the Reputation vault tracks or debut from a place of like celebration rather than like defiance. You know?
Right. Yeah. She even talked about like her favorite re-recording was probably Red, and how like All Too Well 10-minute was like, she was like, that was probably my favorite re-record. And when everyone was rallying behind me, she said she was like calling Phoebe Bridgers, like all these people who like were so eager to support her in that early venture of actually like doing the thing. She's like so grateful for. And she was saying that, you want to know why the band sounds so good on the Eras tour? It's because they were in the room with me recording it. Like, yeah, like you could tell she feels like her recording process is a team, like the way that Travis thinks of a team. Yeah. And it's like, it was so, she's just like a wholesome person. We made the right person famous. Okay. Yeah. And I was so happy to hear about her experience, like in her own words, what that was like literally what was that moment like. And you know, I don't know if she'll ever have a moment quite like that where it just feels like all this hard work is like paid off.
Well,
but
and she says at the end, it changed my life. And she was like practically in tears when she said that. But it's like, I don't think like she kind of said in her letter that like she can't really overstate how important this is and how much it means to her.
And
also,
she talked about how other artists are now talking to her about, I didn't even know that was something I could use as a bargaining chip. Like, I didn't understand that. And she was like, it was worth it even for that alone. So like
the bringing awareness. And, you know, and Jason was asking some great questions about the re-recording process and just how like everyone, well, not the Swifties, but everyone else thought like, oh, that's such a stupid idea. No one's going to care. Your fans might be like annoyed. Like, why are you re-releasing this album? And of course, that's not how it went down. And Jason kind of like rhetorically was like, yeah, like who's going to listen to the same album twice? And Travis like puts up his hand. And then he's like, you could release 1989 a third time and I'll listen to it. Which is like, I love him so much and his love for 1989. It's so good. But I thought that really showed his support as well, like in his funny Travis way to be like, yeah, you could release 1989 again and I'll listen to it.
Right. And that's the thing.
Every time.
Everyone discounted how much the Swifties would rally behind the whole project. She talked about that too. She's like, it would not be possible without their support. So like, it's just like this full circle moment. I'm so glad we got to hear about it in her own words.
Yeah.
We also got to hear about her life after the Eras tour, and how she's, quote, on my granny shit. I exclusively make little girl handbags and baby blankets. Saying that she likes to sew, paint, cook, and bake. And then she, of course, we love this. Taylor says every 6 months she gets into a new baking obsession. And they mention her Pop-Tarts briefly, and then Pop-Tarts come back later. But sourdough is her thing now, which we kind of speculated because we know that she gave Selena a loaf of sourdough at her engagement party or birthday party?
Birthday party. Gift. Yeah.
And Tina taught her. And she said...
Wait, Tina's like a friend of her mom's who lives like across the street or something?
Yeah, like just literally she was like, tell me everything. And she taught her, she gave her her starter and her life was changed.
Right, yeah.
And I love this because Taylor is someone who is just like a thorough person. So of course she loves sourdough. Like sourdough is so complex and like it requires tending to and like, you know, you can play around with ratios and like it's very scientifical and, you know, like, it's like all this. It's like,
I love that you just made up a word there.
I know. It's very scientifical. And she said she's been reading a lot of baking blogs. And then she said, I'm on your blog. Okay.
Yeah.
And they were asking, like, what's your favorite flavors? She was like, well, I love my original, but like the blueberry sourdough, cinnamon swirl sourdough, cinnamon raisin sourdough, funfetti sourdough for the Kelsey girls. Like, she kept saying, like, how the girls love sprinkles. Anytime we do something, there's got to be sprinkles in it.
Right. Yeah. I think she said she was workshopping the funfetti sourdough for the girls.
It's just, like, so funny to me because, like, and then she was saying Travis was making sourdough and Travis knows how to make sourdough and his actually was rising better than hers. And, like, I just love this because also making sourdough is such like a homebody move.
Oh yeah.
You know, like you can't be like, it's just so funny to me. And now I'm like, okay, is the new Swiftie thing that we don't make friendship bracelets? We now make sourdough loaves. Okay.
Oh, no.
Can you imagine?
I did a sourdough starter. Oh God. Like pre-COVID at one point and even I could not live that life. It's too much.
It's too much. I tried it too.
Too much work. Yeah.
I tried it too. But kudos to Taylor for doing it.
Yeah, more power to her.
Yeah. And then the puns just kept coming. Loafing him was red. It's a loaf story, but baby, just say yeast. Are you ready for it? I mean...
She's such a dork, honestly.
I know. She's such a dork and we love it.
Yeah.
She also talked about the summer of her parental upgrades. There were articles recently about Scott having quintuple bypass surgery. He's doing well. It must have happened before the news broke because in the summer, early summer, Taylor and Travis were seen in like Florida together. Taylor was basically playing nurse for Scott, between her brother, her mother, and herself. So like while Travis was at training camp in Florida, she was like helping out her family.
Yeah.
And Scott seems to be a big personality. I sort of didn't know that, but everyone talks about how he's like a rip-roaring type of guy.
Yeah, and like super social. Like she was talking earlier about how he just becomes friends with everybody and has so many meaningful relationships in his life.
Yeah.
That go on for like years and years. And she and Travis were saying like, nobody is like that. But I was thinking the whole time, like, Taylor's kind of like that. Like she definitely gets some of that from her dad.
Yeah, that like social butterfly, like natural extrovert sort of thing. Yeah.
And I think Travis is like that. And they say you end up marrying your dad.
Yeah.
So maybe Travis is actually kind of similar to her dad.
Yeah, I think so. And then also, we didn't know this, but Andrea Swift got a new knee.
Yeah.
So like,
that's not a big deal though.
Yeah.
That's like par for the course for older people.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where like, oh, okay. Just learned something else about your family that was not privy to anyone else. But all right.
Yeah. But that's another way though that she just seems like normal, because she has parents who are like in their 70s and she spent the summer kind of taking care of them. Just like anyone else our age might have to at some point.
Yeah.
She and her brother like fighting about who has to take the phone away from dad because he has to rest.
Right.
You know,
it's just like so normal. It's such like a normal. We love it. We heard about the Eras Tour, how much physical strength it required of her. This is when they sort of mentioned that her days on tour were very similar to Travis's game days. Like it was just like a super intense regiment and it's scheduled, and she had a lot of physical help, a physical therapist. She had a bunch of like, she said she was like training beforehand because she didn't want to feel like she was peaking in the middle of the project. She wanted to feel really good going in.
Yeah.
So we learned a lot about like that's when they mentioned she's basically an athlete. And she mentioned that she loved seeing all the fan-made projects. She mentioned the orbs, how people were like blowing up these balloons and making orbs, and how, seeing everyone like make all these like inside. She was like, who plans this? Is there a group text? Like, like whatever. And you're like, Taylor, you have no idea. Like,
right. Right. And she also loves seeing the intergenerational connections happening out in the crowd. I'm glad she was able to take all of that in while she was performing.
She also said she was really glad that she's an adult when she's going on this tour, because before, like, it was always like you're in the moment as much as you can, but you're also thinking about what's next. Like, when am I releasing this next thing? Like, whatever, like, you're in it, but like you're not really fully in it. And she was just like, I was just really able to be fully present and just like take it all in because I'm older and a little wiser.
Right.
So, love that.
Yeah. She also talked about being kind of like anti-internet these days. Like she doesn't really go on social media, which, I mean, that's good.
Why would she? Yeah.
But she did say that she has ways of knowing what the fans want. So, like I'm sure her team is watching all the Swiftie videos and kind of aggregates it and whatever, figures out what they should tell her, you know?
Yeah.
But one of the best quotes that we got from this whole interview was, she said, think of your energy as if it's expensive, as if it's a luxury item. Not everyone can afford it. She's like, and the room of people I was watching this with, we all looked at each other and were like, that's good advice.
Yeah.
That is good advice.
Yeah. And she even talked about how Travis is more online than her, but like he literally shows her videos of otters.
Yeah.
Which is just like so normal. Once again, it's like, of course you're obsessed with otters and like you want to save them. Like,
right.
And she also appreciates that Travis can laugh at some of the speculations about them and how, like, he's like, did you hear that we bought a house in Lake Como? Oh, yeah? Well, did you hear that we blah, 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 blah?
Right.
And It seems like they both have a level-headed approach to like how they're viewed as a couple online, and they're sort of like, it's like water off a duck's back. It's just like, you know,
she said like, if we talked about what people said about us and our relationship online, that's all we would talk about, because there's so much for them to talk about. So they just don't. They just like don't pay attention to it. They don't care, except occasionally if Travis like, oh, did you hear we did this? You know?
Right.
And
right.
just laugh about it and move on. So I think that's good.
Yeah. Because I'm sure in the past Taylor has had relationships where even if they're not chronically aligned, if they even heard speculation about the two of them, it would have upset that person, you know, or it would have
a normal response.
Bruised their ego or whatever. Like, it's just, you know.
Yeah. It's not normal behavior.
No, it's not a normal situation. Right.
Like, and Taylor has had to hone this skill for years now.
Mm-hmm.
And Travis has talked about how, like, yeah, it's kind of wild, but he also seems very well equipped to adapt, and he's learning from Taylor how to handle it.
Yeah.
And he clearly handles it better than anyone we've seen before.
Oh, yeah. Also, like, wait, I want to pause for a second. I love that Travis is not as famous as Taylor, but like he is as famous as her in his own world. And like they're sort of in two different operating worlds, but there's a lot of, Taylor talked about a lot of the similar like metaphors about what their jobs are. They're both in entertainment. His is on the field, hers is like performing on the field or whatever.
Yeah.
Like they obviously have a very balanced approach to how they view their careers and how they view themselves operating within their careers and their support of each other and like whatever. But I also love that Jason, basically, who is a celebrity in the NFL, and especially here in the greater Pennsylvania area, okay? Jason is now our Barbara Walters, okay? He's asking the good questions, including something that I think all Swifties want to know, which is, how do you plan your Easter eggs?
Yeah.
Okay? And I love this because, like, that's something I would ask. I'd be like, so what do you go through? Like, what's the planning process like? She mentioned that she loved numerology, which we all know. She talked about how she loved 13. And that Jason mentioned that he always loved the number 13 because it was like a bad number and he thought it was cool. And then he was like, well, what does that mean? You and I both like the number 13. And she was like, well, it means like we're family. Like that's like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, Travis and her brought up the 13 plus 87 thing.
Yeah.
Like, I love that.
Yeah. And then Taylor even mentioned the whole keeping it 100 thing that, remember when we talked about Travis's like hard launch on his Instagram?
Yeah.
Where his caption said kept it 100. And it's like, does that mean he and Taylor were together? Is that like their little code word name for being together?
Yeah.
So she says keeping it 100. I think she asked Jason, like, don't you ever keep it 100? And Travis was like, yeah. So I feel like that has to be a lyric at some point. Like, I'm thinking kind of like Ready for It style, like Burton to this Taylor kind of thing.
He can be something my jailer. Yeah.
Yeah. Something about keeping it 100 is going to be in a song, which means that Travis's Instagram post was an Easter egg.
He's the new mule. He's the new mule. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And speaking of Easter eggs, she said the number 47 twice during this interview.
I noticed that she mentioned, thanks for yelling for 47 seconds. And then she also said 47 again later in the podcast. It's like, that's a weird coincidence.
Like 47,000. Oh, Jason asked her like how many countries she went to. She's like, oh God, it was like 47,000.
Right.
So what's the 47?
Yeah. So she mentions numerology. So of course, all of us are like writing down all the numbers that she wrote down. Another thing she said is that she's not a pro, but she said, give me 16 months. So a lot of us figured out that like 16 months from now is basically her birthday. Like it was like the 13th.
Next year.
It's not this December, but you're right. It's next December. So a lot of people like save that date. Maybe she'll, you know, whatever.
20th anniversary edition of debut.
Probably. Who knows? Like, And she mentioned that she wants her Easter eggs to be fun. Like, if you don't want to get into it, you don't have to. But if you do want to look into the corner of the music video and see something that's dimly lit and think about it, like, you can do that. But you can also just fully, like,
just
not care.
Music.
Right. And one thing I love that she said, I never make Easter eggs about my personal life. It's always about the music. Clock it. Clock it. If you don't know what I'm referring to.
Wait, but like what Easter eggs have people thought related to her personal life?
I'm going to say it. It's for the Gaylors. It's for the girlies who think that she's constantly...
I see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
She's basically saying, like, all these things you think I'm giving you an Easter egg for is not true. It's not true. Like, I will Easter egg about the music, but I will never Easter egg about my own personal life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like the Easter eggs are about like song titles or lyrics or when the album is coming out or what the album like the color is or something.
Right.
It's not going to be like, oh, by the way, I secretly love women.
Or I'm secretly dating XYZ, or like this is a secret code that so and I share with each other. She doesn't do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference between obviously like Easter eggs for releases and for songs and for lyrics and like that sort of thing. And obviously like analyzing her music. Analyzing her music is a totally different beast than like when we're speculating like when and what the next album will be about. But I just thought that was a very important thing that she mentioned. She did it very subtly, but she said, I'm never going to Easter egg about my personal life. It's always about the music.
Okay. Yeah. I was wondering like what she meant by that, but I didn't even think about the Gaylor thing, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And a lot of people, here's another thing too. One of the big Gaylor theories recently is that they think that Travis and her have a fake relationship. Think like the 7 husbands of Evelyn Hugo, like in the celebrity world, you have like these fake relationships while 2 people are closeted. And a lot of Gaylors were saying like, oh my God, she's even telling us like she's a showgirl. She's putting on a facade, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, like this is not performance art. This is her literally saying like, I'm peeling back the curtain during my life during this time. Stop speculating about Easter eggs that I'm giving you about my personal life. I'm not doing that. Like, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because there have been a lot of things recently about people interpreting certain things about her and Travis and about it being a fake relationship and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're saying like, oh, this is an Easter egg about her actually she's like, no. No. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Speaking of Easter eggs, though, there were a lot of little TS things like on the shelves behind them.
Yes.
There are probably so many Easter eggs on that shelf behind them in the interview that we don't even understand yet. But I also love that it was like TS stuff mixed in with Travis football things.
Yep.
Like there was TS and then there was something like a football, but then there was also something with the microphone. It was a very interesting, like visual commingling of their lives. Also, I'm pretty sure, because I was wondering, like, where are they filming this? But there was one behind the scenes video of intern Brandon, as they call him, like vacuuming up the glitter confetti.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was a set that they built. So I'm pretty sure there was a film crew in front of them, like filming, lighting them. Because even like if you think about the way the camera was on them, I think they had a laptop with Jason in front of them, but the lighting, the whole thing was fake. Like I don't think that was like in their home somewhere, you know, I mean, that's like a shelf that actually exists.
No, I don't think so either. It definitely was a set. But yeah, I'm sure there are tons of little Easter eggs in that bookshelf.
Oh, I heard there was like a Pinocchio.
Right. Which we'll get to. Actually, save that.
Okay.
So then the final section was like rapid fire questions. First question, what do you think about Jason telling his kids that cats are poisonous? And then she said, as soon as I got the kids around the cats, it was my goal to prove to them that they are not.
Yeah.
And she said the easiest way was to give them Benjamin, who's a ragdoll cat. And ragdoll cats like literally become like spineless and just like fluffy, like cute little like cuddle bugs as soon as you flip them on their bellies. So she was like, as soon as I did that. And then she said that, you know, she knows when the girls are over, they're constantly like holding the cats and like, here's Meredith and like stuff like that. She said, oh,
Yeah.
and did she bite you? Did she scratch you? No. Okay. And then she said, I heard you're getting a cat to Jason. And then she said, what did you think of my cats, my 3 perfect angels? Which I'm like.
But also notice how like Travis never really says anything, because I don't think Travis really cares for cats either.
They did say that they had a cat growing up called Flash.
Right.
So yeah.
I think he was like an outdoor cat mostly.
Yeah. I think that Taylor Swift is always going to be a cat lady. So
oh yeah,
if he wants to be with Taylor, he's got to like him.
Yeah.
Obviously, we talked about her baking skills, but like she talks about one of my favorite things she said. She's like, I love making pop music and Pop-Tarts. It's just like.
Oh my God. See, we would be like best friends with her in real life. This is why I have dreams about being her friend, because it's just so plausible.
I know. She's talking about how like she's done all sorts of different Pop-Tart flavors and like, you know, Kylie got me to making cinnamon sugar. And then Jason said, you've ruined Pop-Tarts for me, which like, you know.
Which you should call them the cinnamon sugar, but I'm assuming she means the brown sugar cinnamon.
I think
that's my favorite.
Yeah, they're good. They're so good.
I love them.
And she said the strawberry is like the OG. But it just makes me want to learn how to make Pop-Tarts so I can be like, girl, I know. They're like so easy to make, but they're so delicious. Yeah. Like, anyway, I just love that she goes through these baking obsessions every 6 months. I'm like,
I need her to get obsessed with chocolate chip cookies and then discover my chocolate chip cookie recipe.
It's only a matter of time. Maybe she's already looked into it. Who knows?
Yeah. And for anyone listening or watching, it's at cakeoversteak.com. It's my old food blog. It's still up. And it's my ultimate chocolate chip cookie recipe.
And it's damn good. It's the best chocolate chip cookie.
As Travis would say.
It's a banger. It's a banger.
Yeah. She was also asked about the rumor that she played the bear in the new Happy Gilmore movie. And she was like, OMG, I can deny. That was not me. But whoever did it was lovely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a funny one.
Yeah.
And also, whose idea was it for her to arrive to the stage of the Eras Tour in the cleaning cart?
Yeah.
And she said it was her idea. She said, that's my type of idea. You're performing for the whole internet. I didn't want them to see my first outfit and first look, which would have ruined the first era, would have like given it away.
Yeah.
She said, I didn't want that to be their first image of it. It was about preserving the sanctity of the first moment. And there's a weird side of me that likes to sneak around. Right. So I guess she was just planning to do it for like the first show. And then she was like, I'm just going to keep doing this.
Yeah, it's so good. Fun. Yeah. They asked, what was your welcome to the NFL moment? She said, probably stepping onto the field for the AFC Championship in Baltimore. Apparently, Donna said, okay, let's go to the field after they had won. And she and Travis hadn't had a conversation about it. And she was like, we didn't discuss this. Like, does he want me down there? And Donna was like, trust me, he wants you there. And basically, like, the two of them went down and she was like, I was so proud of you. It was so magical.
Yeah.
That was a super cool moment because that's when we're like, oh my God, she's like the girlfriend of the field. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she said, they asked, what was your welcome to being a pop star moment? And we sort of talked about this already. She said, oh my God, I never allowed myself to feel like you've arrived thing. I'm glad the Eras Tour happened when I'm an adult because now I can really soak in that moment. Starting to do this when I was 16, I was always on to the next plan. I never allowed myself to think, you've arrived, you've made it. It was always about what's next. I'm so grateful for the ability to create. So
yeah, and this is what we've talked about like in our Clara Bow episode, which feels like an older more mature version of Nothing New, which was the vault track on Red, Taylor's version. She just never settles. She's always pushing for what's next. And like, she never feels safe enough to relax because she knows that it could all just go away so quickly.
Yep.
Which also goes back to what I was saying about the way she and Travis like don't take it for granted that they are where they are and they appreciate it. Even though they've been doing this for a while, they still look around at their life. Like, there were a couple times in the interview where Travis said, "I'm the luckiest guy in the world." Like, I think he said it about like dating Taylor just in general. He said it about being able to eat all of her baked goods.
Yeah.
Like, I think he said that in his GQ interview as well. Like, he's just always looking around like, look at my life. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You know? And so, yeah, I think Taylor, in kind of a different way, like, she has looked around at her career and has been like, don't settle.
Yeah.
Don't feel safe because you're never safe.
Yeah. And I don't know if she'll ever just like finally like relax into like being who she is. I feel like now she might be, but it's one of those things where it's like, especially being so young and being like the new shiny thing, you're like, well, you can't just be 15 minutes of fame. You have to extend it. You have to extend it, you know, like. And then finally, I love that the last question was, do you have any questions for us? And she said, yeah, Jason, I was wondering how that wax is growing in, which is like so funny because I was like, what in the world is she talking about?
It took me a minute to realize what she was talking about, but she's referring to how Jason recently wore a Speedo at some event. I'm just, was it their like,
excuse
bless
me,
you, their like fundraiser thing that they do at the beach, maybe?
Yeah, Sea Isle or something like that. Yeah. But he walked into a European wax center and was just like, wax me up. Like, Taylor, like, you know that the family group chat was just like exploding when they all learned that he had done that, you know?
Yeah.
So
also, the way Taylor was talking to him about it, it was very obvious that like Taylor gets waxes. You know? Like, I'm sure she has her own like personal waxer who comes to her house.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. But and Travis was just dying laughing during that whole segment.
It was just such a great podcast. And I could not believe I was sitting there for 2 hours and listening to it. I felt like I was an intruder.
Yeah.
I was like,
and we didn't even mention that we broke the internet. They got cut off because they did it as like a live stream thing. And at like an hour and 45 minutes, it just cuts out.
Yeah.
And at this point, like with Steph and Josh, we were like, how is this still going? Like, how much time is left? And then it cut off. And then we saw on social media that something broke. They were like, please stay tuned. We're sorry. Yeah. And so at that point, I was like, there's probably like 3 minutes left of this thing. And then this morning I wake up and I see that it has come back and there's a full 20 more minutes for me to watch.
Right. I watched it this morning. I was like, I've got to go to bed. And then I watched it this morning. I was like, I'm so glad. Like, more. It felt like a bonus episode.
Yeah. Just insane. We may never get something like that again.
No, it was so special. It was, you know, for a while I was concerned it was just going to be like them talking about like, I don't know, like sports, because that's what they do. But like, it obviously was not. And I think that Jason did a really good job of facilitating. Like I said, he's our Barbara Walters. So like, he asked the questions we wanted to know. And you could just tell she felt really comfortable. And it was just like a very casual, like easy conversation. I mean, so many jokes, so many puns, so many like tangents, like just all good stuff.
Yeah.
And then we got to talk about the life of a showgirl. Okay. Right. So she unveils the art and we get a little information from the podcast. It's going to be 12 tracks.
Quite a bit of information, really.
I know, we got a lot, actually. More than normal. Like, normally we like learn about this later, but now we have all this information, like when it was recorded, like who she was working. Anyway, so 12 tracks or 12 bangers, as it was called.
Yeah.
Coming out October 3rd. All Max Martin and Shellback.
Yeah.
Wild.
which is, she's never done a full complete album, just the three of them.
Right.
I mean, 1989, because I looked this up earlier today. 1989 had the most songs with them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 9 on Reputation.
Yeah.
Which also, like, when she made that playlist, I don't know how I missed this. I did not realize that Reputation is like mostly a Max Martin Shellback album.
Yeah, because I associate it with Jack, because we see a lot of the behind the scenes clips of the two of them writing. Yeah. I think like Getaway Car, like, you know what I mean?
And I would say like probably, I mean, Getaway Car is probably my favorite song, and that's a Jack song. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like we talk about the Jack songs on that album so much that I don't know how I just like never really thought about who was producing the other ones.
Right.
But it kind of blew my mind this week that I was like, oh, that's a Max Martin Shellback album.
Yeah. Really. And if you're not familiar with the music that Max Martin has made specifically, like he's kind of like the reigning king of like pop music. Like as a producer, he's worked with Ariana Grande. Like I could just go on and on.
Writer.
Yeah. He's a genius. Shellback
he did
as
like
well.
Backstreet Boys and like NSYNC and stuff, I think. Britney Spears.
Yep.
Like all that stuff, like early 2000s, like it was him.
Yep.
Kind of like Benny Blanco in the 2010s.
Yeah, like he was the guy. Yeah.
Max Martin in the early 2000s.
And I think like when we think about Taylor's songs with Max Martin's, they are the pop bangers. They are like 22.
Like 1989. Yeah. And the pop ones from Red, which is when she first worked with them.
Right.
Was for Red.
And yeah, basically she mentioned that Max Martin came to see her at the Eras tour, and she basically like convinced him to do this record with her. She was like, I think we can do it, blah, blah, blah. And apparently she was just like sneaking off to Sweden. Like she'd finish her Eras tour weekends, and then like on her days off would secretly fly to Stockholm to work with them.
Right. It's crazy. But also I think it makes sense that, I mean, we're assuming this is like her first official Travis album. Mm-hmm. It makes sense that it's going to be kind of like in the vein of 1989. Mm-hmm. And it comes out on his birthday weekend.
Right. Like it's very coded. Very coded. Oh, I also had a major brain moment.
What?
Because I realized like, okay, if Taylor's sneaking off to Stockholm to work with these two, she told us, the European leg of the Eras tour, she's basically like peeling the curtain back and telling us what was her life behind the curtain during that time. I was like, okay, there's been this speculation that there's an Eras tour documentary. We've seen the video crews follow her backstage. Like, there's obviously a documentary that's somewhat happening. Okay.
Yeah.
This is why we don't have the Eras tour documentary yet. Because
we would have known that she was working with them.
Right. It would have been part of like the documentary is her going to Sweden and writing the next album, but we would have had no idea about it until this announcement happened first.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
I was like, oh my God, this is like, so what's great is that if there is a documentary, this would also be behind the scenes as well. We'd get to see all the like inner workings of like what she's talking about.
Right.
So kind of fascinating there, but.
This documentary is going to be like 13 parts.
Because I hope it's like a Netflix thing. I hope it's like a whole season. I feel like
she's got to like wrap up the re-recording process in it too, because that really ties into the Eras tour. But then she ended up getting her music back, so now that has to be part of it.
Exactly.
But at some point she just has to put it out, because things are going to continue to happen in her life that are like documentary worthy.
I feel like after this record, like it's got to come out, because that's sort of like the closing of that whole time, you know?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she's sneaking off during the European leg, talking about the songs and the life that she's living as a showgirl. It's going to be so fascinating. Like what was going on during her time during this time. And I should mention, we are going to do a whole separate episode of our theories and like speculation about the album, kind of like what we did with Tortured Poets Department, because we have like the track titles and stuff.
The track titles and everything.
We're not going to get fully into it this episode.
Yeah.
So just wait for that.
Yeah. So she told us that it's just 12 tracks. She's like, nothing else is coming. It's like not a double album. And she mentioned that Tortured Poets was a legit like data dump of like her brain. Of,
right.
Like, all the things she was thinking and feeling. And she was talking about how each album has like a different goal for her.
Mm-hmm.
So the goal of Tortured Poets was to like get that stuff out. Like, let me just vomit all my feelings into these songs and just give them to people.
And
like,
she talked about how lyricism was like super important to her in Tortured Poets. And this time
and having them be like poems.
Right.
Like, they're actually all just poems.
Right.
But for this album, The Life of a Showgirl, it's just 12 perfect tracks. She says every single song on this album is on this album for hundreds of reasons. Like, you can't like take one. If you take one away, the album doesn't make sense.
Right.
So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And she wanted it to be like upbeat, sparkly, glittery, all that stuff. But so with her saying 12 tracks and that's it. Mm-hmm. Right. So my question for you is, do we believe her that it's only 12 tracks?
Initially, I'm saying, yes, we believe her. It's out of her own mouth, whatever. But then I saw that people discovered there's a little 13 on the deluxe CDs. Yeah. So Taylor released like 4 variants of these CDs, like different colors, and they're obviously titled after different lyrics, which again, we'll talk about in a later episode. But there is a little number 13 on the back of these CDs. So I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, and it's like, because the envelope is not, we can't see the whole thing, but we see the album title and underneath is a 13. So why would that 13 be there? Right? Like, this is not TS 13. Also, we know she obviously loves the number 13. So her leaving it at 12 just feels unlikely to me. Also, especially with how much she was talking about baking, 13 is a baker's dozen. So I don't know. I won't believe it until I like see it with my own eyes. Oh, I guess also the back cover of the vinyl, or like the image that she showed for the back cover, under track 12, there's like a weird like rectangle. Like, it almost looks like something's not, like something was covered up. But she did show the back of the vinyl on the podcast. So if there was a 13th track, but then again, that was the standard edition. So maybe the other variants have a bonus track. I don't know. Who's to say?
Maybe. I don't know. It could also be like, instead of a song, maybe it's like a poem, or like a message from Taylor, or I don't know.
Or something like a voice memo, or acoustic version or something. Remix.
Right.
It could be something like that.
Something like that. I don't know. But I do like that she's just straight out telling us this is not a double album. This is not like a 3 a.m. you're getting a whole separate double album situation.
Yeah.
I just feel like it to me, it piques my curiosity, because I'm like, every song on this album is going to be super important, tastefully done, like very precise. Like, everything's on there for a reason. I almost am kind of imagining it like almost a concept album in the way that it's like structured, because she mentioned that while Max Martin, Shellback, and her were all doing separate projects, they were all like sharpening their own skills. And now that they're coming back together, they're really able to come to the table with like new energy, new skills. And Max had mentioned that he loved her storytelling and folklore, and that he didn't want her to lose that in this process, and how he wanted her to come to the table with that sort of style. And she said, oh, trust me, that's not going anywhere.
Yeah, like she was like, I couldn't take that away even if I wanted to. Like, that's locked in.
Right. So I'm thinking like deep storytelling in the Taylor Swift fashion with pop bangers. Like, it's just going to be so fascinating to know, like, what is the message of this album? And is it like, and she's so proud of it too. She talked about how proud of this album that she is. So, yeah.
Right. And also I want to mention with Martin and Shellback, like the two of them plus Taylor, like they're all three are powerhouses in their fields. Like Taylor specifically with her lyrics and storytelling, but also her ability to write melodies. And Max Martin is like, he's like a melody machine and a production genius. And they talked about this in that book I read, The Strategic Genius of Taylor Swift, like putting them together as a team. They really feed off each other and like amplify each other's strengths and abilities, because that was why like Taylor working with them with like Max Martin is so good, because Max Martin also like being Swedish, like his stuff he did with like Backstreet Boys and whatever, and Britney Spears, like it's kind of well known that like those songs are pop hits.
Right.
They are pop genius. But the lyrics are like weird.
Right? Yeah.
And so when Taylor first started working with him, she was like, okay, we're going to do all that. But like the lyrics are also going to be very intentional, you know, because that's how she works.
Right.
So you put all of this genius together.
Yeah.
And you get really good music. And so then she was saying like they've taken, you know, a few years away from each other and have been working on other things, honing these skills. And now they're coming back stronger than ever.
Right.
It's like I don't know enough about like superhero stuff, but it just feels like like when you combine all the forces.
It's basically like the Marvel Cinematic Universe is coming together to make an album. It's just like everyone who's the peak in their career is coming together.
Yeah, it's gonna be insane.
It's gonna be so good. And I love that we got to hear about the theme, and like Jason was really asking the good questions here. So he said, like, what's the theme? Like, what would you say is like the main thing? And she said everything that was going on behind the curtain at the end of the night at the Eras tour. She said her goal was to make melodies so catchy they're almost frustrating, with like vivid and intentional lyrics.
Right.
What more could you ask for? I mean,
yeah, like more upbeat. Travis said these songs are going to make you dance. They're going to make you move. She said that her life at this time was infectiously joyful, wild, dramatic, like a bright contrast to the moody, tortured poets department. And it made me think about the contrast of, we have the song I Can Do It With a Broken Heart, which is about the first section of the Eras tour when she was heartbroken and had to go out on stage, to now the European leg of the tour. She wants to make an album about the behind the scenes of her life on tour. And she wants it to be as glittery and sparkly and fun as what was going on in her life at that time.
Right. She's not like barely holding it together. She's like celebrating this period of her life where she's falling in love. And like, you know, speaking of fire, the photos for this album release. Insane. Oh my God. Like,
guys, we have seen Taylor's belly button.
We've seen the belly button.
It exists.
And remember when Donald Trump tweeted that like Taylor Swift is not hot?
Yeah. Beg to differ.
She said, okay? Oh yeah?
She's hotter than she's ever been.
Oh my God. And I will say, like, when I first saw the like main photo that's being used for like the main album, I was shocked. I was like, that's the photo? Because in relationship to like the other photos, which I think are a little bit more aligned with like the showgirl fantasy, burlesque vibes, like that sort of thing, it's very different. The front photo has so much symbolism though, which we'll talk about, but she did talk about how this image to her is like her depicted in a bathtub, which is like kind of like what she was doing at the end of each performance day. But not wearing a sparkly dress.
Right. But she wanted to glamorize it.
Right. And she wants to glamorize all the different aspects of how that tour felt. But like that front photo, as like low-key an art nerd, I cannot wait to geek out about this on our theories, because like I've already seen some online, but I think there's a deeper meaning to it. We'll talk about it in a later episode.
Yeah, because I'm intrigued by the kind of like broken mirror theme happening.
Right, because there's little specks of like her eyes and her lips and like...
Which she also had in Reputation, which I forget if you mentioned, but she used the same photographers that she used during Reputation.
Mm-hmm.
The Reputation CD, like the art on the CD itself, is the like eye picture where she's got her fingers up by her eyes that we talked about in our Roman Empire episode.
Yeah.
Which one of these like burlesque style photos for this new album, her hands are up at her eyes in a very similar way in one of the photos. But the Reputation CD has that image, but it's all chopped up in like it's a broken mirror showing it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing that on both like the front and back cover for this new album.
Also, not to spoil our next episode, we talk about this, but not next episode, whenever we do talk about it in a later episode.
Yeah.
People have pieced together that the photo of her wearing the black wig with the big feather, that room is the same room where they filmed Delicate, which is another Reputation track. So, I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. I'm so excited.
I know.
I think this album could be my favorite album.
I'm so excited.
We'll see.
Yeah. We did get a little bit more about some potential song lyrics in the CD variants. They were titled Sweat and Vanilla Perfume. It's frightening. It's rapturous. It's beautiful. And all of the CD variants came with jewelry for a limited amount of time. So,
yeah. We did also get all the song titles. So do we want to go through these?
Yeah.
We're not going to get into our theories because we'll do that in a future episode.
Yeah.
But let's just run through them.
Okay. So we have The Fate of Ophelia, Elizabeth Taylor, Opalite, Father Figure. Track 5, which will probably wreck all of us, is Eldest Daughter.
Ugh,
I'm not ready for that. Ruin the Friendship, Actually Romantic, Wish List, which is stylized with $2 signs where the S's are. Would, Cancelled, which is all caps with an exclamation point. Honey, and The Life of a Showgirl featuring Sabrina Carpenter.
That's going to be so good.
I know.
I wonder if that's the music video they filmed.
Yeah, I'm so curious because there are rumors about them shooting in LA. I don't know. Normally, like, the title track isn't the main single, but who knows?
Yeah. But overall, like, she is setting this album up to be like a crowning achievement in her career, which is such an extremely high bar, especially at this point in time. But she is selling it so hard. She's clearly so proud of it. And I think that shows by how she's like pushing it and selling it to us and going on the podcast to talk about it. Like, she wants to talk about this one.
Right. And it makes sense when we know the theme of everything too, because it's like, this was a good time of her life. Like, this was a very like crowning, sparkly, vivid, like all these things that she's described. Why would she want to do press for the Tortured Poets Department? Why would she want to hash out like this devastating time of her life? I understand that. She's like at this point where she's like, I'm ready to talk about it. Like, I'll tell you everything.
Also, one of the moments in the interview, I think Travis or Jason basically asked her, like, are your albums and your songs like informed by what's going on in your personal life? And she was like, yeah.
Yeah.
She was basically like 100%.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And so with Tortured Poets, like, for one thing, she was on tour
Mm-hmm.
So the tour was essentially press for the
Mm-hmm.
album. But yeah, like she never, I don't think she even said anything like, I'm so proud of this album. And same with like Midnights. I
Right.
mean, yeah, like I think she felt this way about 1989 for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And this feels like it's going to be a more mature, new version of 1989.
Mm-hmm.
Also because 1989 was her first like full pop record
Mm-hmm.
where she was like, I'm going full pop. I have a very specific sound. I want this to be very cohesive. And that's what she seems to be doing here.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I don't know, like she just seems so excited about this one in a way that she hasn't seemed excited about
Right.
other projects in a long time.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you think she'll do more press?
I don't know. Yeah, like I don't know if her doing the podcast is now like the floodgates are open. She's going to go on Call Her Daddy or whatever.
Right.
It might just be like, yeah, I said everything I need to say. So there's no reason for me to go
It's
anywhere
not like
else.
she has to do press. Like,
right.
She's at a level where she doesn't have to do that. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. I mean, I think this might all we will be getting besides like obviously music videos and like hopefully
or maybe like a late night appearance. I could see her doing
yeah,
that.
maybe a late night appearance, maybe
SNL.
Maybe, yeah, like maybe I mean people have talked about how the Super Bowl, maybe she's performing at the Super Bowl, blah blah blah. But I don't foresee her like doing a circuit of, you know, sitting down to do interviews, but maybe a little bit more of like being an outdoor cat, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I will be so fascinated if we get like voice notes and like all the like behind the scenes stuff that we got with Tortured Poets. With this one, I hope so. Obviously, those are like super fun, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think we covered everything we need to today.
2 hours into this episode. Yeah.
There's still more for us to discuss in a future episode.
Yeah, guys, please tell us what specifically questions or like theories that you want us to discuss. Like if there's something you're curious about, like please leave us an email or you can text us at 717-382-8313. Or of course you can like reach out on DMs on Instagram. But we want to know like what are your theories and speculation? Because this is going to be something we'll talk about in a later episode. So
yeah, please let us know. But how about like this whole event as a recipe or a food?
For me, it's a super bubbly, like champagne forward Aperol spritz. It's orange.
Oh,
it's bubbly. It's effervescent. It's like overflowing with like, you know, Aperol spritz to me is like joy. Like we're just like, I don't know, Portofino orange.
The color is on point. So you got it there.
Yeah.
And I said it's a champagne sea, which isn't that in This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things. So that's what I'm picturing. Just like a swimming pool full of champagne that we're all gonna like skinny dip in or something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
What an exciting week for us Swifties.
Oh my gosh.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah. Truly.
I just keep saying that.
So good.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's sign off for now.
And I'm going to re-listen to the podcast. Like,
oh yeah, I already started. I'm listening to the audio. I'm maybe like halfway-ish done today. I love that it's also just like available there for us to re-listen at any time or rewatch it.
It's just there. Yeah. We love it. All right, guys. Well, we should probably sign off because it's been a long episode. So thank you so much for joining. If you'd like to support us, please give us a follow at Blank Plate Pod on TikTok and Instagram. And make sure you're following us on YouTube. And like I said, leave us comments, hit our DMs about speculations and theories about the album.
Yeah. You can check out our website at blankplatepodcast.com. You can email us at blankplatepod@gmail.com. And you can leave us a voicemail or text us at 717-382-8313. So just put us in your phone contacts. So when you have a thought, you can just text it to us. We love hearing from you.
And if you're enchanted by what we're doing here, support us on Patreon, which is linked in our show notes. Or you can go there directly at patreon.com/blankplatepodcast. And we will put a little snippet of our most recent episode at the end of this episode.
Yeah, which is about August from Folklore, because it's August. Mm-hmm. So, and until next time, we had the time of our lives with you.
And you know, it's time to go.
Bye.
Bye.
And then she says, August sipped away like a bottle of wine.
Okay, I swear to God, I had no idea that was the lyric. It makes sense, but I still like thought it was slipped away like a bottle of wine. And in my head, I was like, that makes sense. But now I'm like, sipped away obviously is like wine. You sip wine. Duh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that means like, for one thing, it's like you're enjoying every last drop of something, right? So like she's like sipping up
savoring
these moments, but also it's a series of all these little moments. But once it's over, it's over. Like it's a finite amount of time, just like the final drops in a bottle of wine. And that made me think of this line from Illicit Affairs.
It's born from just one single glance, but it dies and it dies and it dies a million little times.
So good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
Can't refill that bottle. Mine. Yeah.
Right.